met with him at an event in Seattle, and he goes, hey, by the way, I'm coaching property managers on how to run their business. So at that point, I came down here, flew down, signed up with the program, sat in these seats with you guys, and been working with them ever since. And I got to a point where I'm like, I think I'm ready to sell this damn thing. So I called him up. He got me in touch with an attorney and helped me out throughout the whole process. So Steve is a good resource, not just on these whole systems things, but just in business itself. Text him if you feel like you're going to quit and you want to give everything up and go get a job. He'll talk you out of it. So I've done that a million times. I still do that today. But with that, I also opened up elevation construction. We had clients who wanted construction, so I opened that up, and I liked that more than property management, so I kept that. Once I sold property management, came down here, hung out with Steve. He goes, hey, I think you might like Houston better than Seattle. I said, yeah. He goes, yeah, your people are down here. I said, okay, cool. So I talked to my wife. We came down here. Long story short, we moved down here 2 years ago. So we operate right now in Tacoma, Washington. We got 2 projects going on up there. We got 7 projects going down here in Houston, and then we're opening up to federal government work too. That's elevation construction. Also, even though I don't like property management, I'm a minority owner in Apex Property Management in Iowa, just as an advisory role. I don't have to deal with owners or tenants. And I have my own podcast, The Caffeinated Contractor. But we're not here to talk about me and my business. We're talking about leadership today. That's actually my keychain. So before I move on, I'm going to go into my first story. And I know somebody here was in the military. What's your name? Eric. Both of you guys were? He is. Who is? You still are? Oh, okay, great. Okay. Can you tell us, just high level, you don't have to why we salute, but the protocol for saluting?
I can't.
You can't?
I'm not a good military guy.
All right. So you have the enlisted ranks, and you have the officer ranks, right? So the enlisted ranks, you don't salute each other, no matter what rank you are. The officers, the protocol is you salute them, right? And then if you're an officer, if you're run across a senior officer, you salute. Does that make sense? Got that, right?
Sorry, I thought you meant the history.
No. I don't even know that. Yeah. I don't know that. You know that, right? Yeah, because you'd be in trouble if you didn't know that part. Yeah. Sorry, I put you on the spot there. Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of give you the story for those who don't know about saluting and stuff like that. What about this? You've seen this before.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
What does this mean?
It means it's like an area of informality where you can take your hat off and you don't have to salute. You can have conversations sometimes in smoke areas.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're in areas where you're working, so you're not stopping every 2 seconds to salute the guy that's coming out to tell you what to do.
Exactly. So it's kind of like an area where you're sitting down and eating, you're outside. If you're indoors, you don't salute. Outdoors, you do. Just common areas where you're just hanging out where, you don't want to be saluting all day long. So they put this sign up that says, hey, we all know there's no hats, no saluting, just chill out in this area, right? Obviously, there's protocol. You respect each other. You don't have to salute. So with that in mind, here's my first story. This was back in 1995. I was a young petty officer, Tighe. Just got to my first duty station. And are you in the Navy? Air Force. Air Force? Yep. Okay. In the Navy, when you get to your first duty station and you're a young sailor, you go to something called X Division. You're probably similar in the Air Force too, where all you do, you pick up cigarette butts, you pick up the trash in the parking lot, you paint, whatever crap that someone else doesn't want to do, the new people do it. For the first month you're at your duty station. So I was in X Division. I got there and I had to report to my department. And they said, hey, Chris, you're part of the special department. Here's a hat. You have to buy this hat and wear it with pride, right? This wasn't X Division. This was a direct support division. So I bought the hat, $20, wore it with pride, wore it the next day to my X Division job. And they said, hey, Chris, you have to paint the hand railings today. And the hand railings is really like 3 flights of stairs. It was a long job. It was like all day long painting, and I hated it. But what I liked about it was that there was a no hat, no salute area in the area where we were walking up and down on the stairwell. So to confirm with my immediate boss, I said, hey, can I just take my hat off so I don't have to so I won't get paint on my hat? I'm a young petty officer. I spent $20 on this hat. I don't make a lot of money. Can I take my hat off so I don't get paint on it? He goes, yeah, sure, no problem. Go ahead. So I took my hat off and I'm painting, a couple hours in, and I get a nice, motivated young lieutenant come up to me. And this is what I got. Yeah, that's a Navy chief, but this is what I got. And so he came up and he started chewing me out because I'm not wearing my hat. So I'm a young petty officer. I'm a little scared of this guy. I'm only, 19 years old, 20 years old. So I put my hat on and start painting. Guess what happened to my hat? I got paint on it, right? I was pissed. And I didn't like that lieutenant. I thought he was a dick. And I didn't want to work for him, and I didn't have to. But every time I saw him, and I was just there, I had to be there for 3 years, right, for my duty station. Every time I saw him, I remembered how he treated me. And if I ever worked for him, I would not have a respect for him because he was a jerk. He didn't treat me well. And it was that time when I dealt with that lieutenant, I knew I wanted to be an officer because I wanted to treat people differently. I didn't want to do to anybody that he did to me. Make sense? So in that interaction with that lieutenant, he already set the culture with me, right? He already told me, he goes, hey, I'm going to be hard on you. I could care less. This is the military, right? Rules are rules. Even though he made up his own rules, it was a no salute area, but apparently to him it was, right? There was no communication. He didn't talk to me as to why he wanted me to put a hat on in a no salute area, right? And I didn't trust him, right? I couldn't trust him anymore. So in that scenario, I know like in the military, there's certain scenarios where, Steve was talking about emergencies in the airlines, right? At those times, you don't give a hug and whisper each other's ear, like, hey, let's go ahead and do this together, right? It's very direct. You tell each other, hey, we need to do this. We need to do this. If someone's in the way, hey, get out of the way. We got to get moving, right? There's urgency in it. But before all that happens, there's a relationship that's built on trust, knowing that when those times happen, you've already built that trust with your team. Does that make sense? So that lieutenant didn't do that with me. If it was done differently, how could he have handled that better as a lieutenant?
Ask why you're not wearing your hat.
Yeah. Ask me why I'm not wearing my hat, right? Gain some understanding. Hey, Petty Officer Tighe, is there a reason why you're not wearing your hat? Yes, sir. I just paid $20 for it yesterday. It's a no salute area. I didn't want to get paint on it because it's $20. I'd have to buy another one. Oh, okay, got it. Understood, right? But what if he still wanted me to wear a hat? Right? He could have said, hey, you know what? There's a lot of generals and admirals coming up and down these stairs. We have to put our best foot forward. It would be best if you were wearing a hat, so let's go find you a different one, right? Takes him a little extra time. We have to find a hat, right? But he's investing in me. He's developing that trust. And if I were to see him again in a couple months, or if I worked for him, I'm like, that guy is legit. I want to work for that guy. I liked how he treated me, right? So in that scenario, bullets were not flying. He could have went the extra mile to really take care of me. Make sense? So have you guys met Phil Kornichuk, Green Beret, through Steve at all? No? So Phil and Steve, they've done some work together. Phil and I were in Afghanistan together. He's a Green Beret in the Army. And so I wanted to show this. He was a Green Beret, sorry. Quick video. There's sound to it, but it doesn't really matter. I could just explain it. This is Afghanistan. This is in an area where there had been a battle like a day or two before, and we were going out there to find, just to shake bushes to see if we could find someone to come out and play with us, right? And so as we were driving around, we got stuck in the middle of a river. So we just tried to cross the river, and this is us. We just got stuck. Next part of the video is going to come up. You're going to see the river and our Humvee stuck in there, and we're just stuck in the middle. Our Humvee won't start.
Where are you at? Are you in Helmand?
What's that?
Are you in Helmand? Where are you at?
No, this was Zirko Valley, just outside of Shindan in Herat. So obviously, this is an area where we can get ambushed. There was a battle there just a couple days ago, right? There's some bad guys there. They probably want to kill us. this is a scenario where, yeah, that sense of urgency is appropriate. But if Phil had come out there and started barking orders at us, it's okay. Because Phil had spent that time up to that point, developing that trust, telling us the why, explaining some things, and really developing a great relationship with us, that if he told me, he said, Chris, get the hell out of my way, I gotta get going here. I'd be like, okay, sorry, Phil, go for it, right? And then maybe later on, he can explain the why. Hey, Chris, hey, I know I told you to get out of the way. I know I told you to get out of the way, and I was pretty direct about it, but here's why I wanted you to do that, right? And so he explained the why after the fact and really reinforced that culture.
A lot of shirtless dudes, brother. I was impressed by the algorithm there. Honestly.
Yeah, bodybuilding stuff. Sorry about that. I was watching the carnivore diet stuff. All right, cool. All right, so I know you guys were distracted by those photos. All right, do you guys understand? Building the trust, explaining the why, just really developing that relationship with your people, right? So how do I take that information and bring it into the business world? This is my team now. Isamar's on my top left. She's my assistant. I got Alma in the middle. She's my operations manager. Liz on the top right is my finance manager. Elsa on the bottom left is, she develops all of our SOPs for us. And then I got Pablo on the bottom right. He's my local project manager. All the females are all in Mexico. So did Steve talk to you guys about virtual assistants and remote team workers? I learned all that stuff from him, and my whole business is run out of Mexico. So what I did was I took my experience in the military, the leadership, all the examples I learned from bad leaders, all the experiences I learned from good leaders, and I decided to take all that and come up with a few things. One is a clear vision. So do you guys know about EOS, traction? I gotta put my glasses on. So this is, yeah, we self-implemented. So we started in August and we just finished a couple weeks ago.
So fully implemented EOS?
Yeah. So we got our core values in place, core focus. We got our 10-year target, marketing strategy, our proven process, go into our 3-year goals. We have our circle of life. This is how our operations operate. So, you got your marketing and your sales, operations, and it just kind of goes in a circle. You got HR, IT, and finance in the middle supporting all of that. And then you go into the 1-year goals and the 90-day goals. So this is in the book Traction, EOS. I use that, but this is very similar to what I learned in the military, right? You have to have a vision. You have to have clarity. You have to know where you're going. You have to know what your targets are. If you don't have goals, you don't have targets, you don't know where you're going to go. Make sense? The next thing is clear roles and responsibilities, job descriptions. When you hire someone, make sure you know what you're hiring them for, and make sure they know why they're being hired. Because if you want to give them jobs, raises, or whatever it might be, you need to go back to the job description and make sure, hey, are they actually doing their job? Are they doing well at it? Are they exceeding it? Do they suck at it? Maybe they're in the wrong seat. Maybe they're the wrong person. So if you don't have all those lined out, it's hard to make a decision whether or not they're the right person. The next is SOPs, standard operating procedures. This here, we love SOPs, right? Military, we all know what SOPs are, right? If you don't know the answer, you go to an SOP. And in the military, there's SOPs all over the place. This is an SOP on how to write SOPs. That's how detailed we got with our team. This is our mother of all SOPs right here. And so we have our format. And what we do is we go through that. We have a process of we develop it, review it, go back and forth. And then when we finalize it, we go in our level 10 meetings on a weekly basis. We review the SOP. And then once it's reviewed, we put up here, it's approved by me on January 22nd. I briefed it to the team on the 23rd. And then we put it on our company page on the 23rd as well. So all of that is documented Everyone is responsible to know all of this information, and we have a place where we put all those SOPs. And then expectations. So this is the military part. Really your vision, right? You guys know Jocko Willink, Extreme Ownership, talks about commander's intent. Now that I'm not in the military anymore, I miss the military, I miss wearing the uniform, so I like using military terms. So I call it the commander's intent. And this is our purpose, what our key tasks are, what our desired end state is. You guys know CCIRs? Got my CCIRs up there, right? CCIRs is, hey, if any of these things happen, I have to wake the admiral up and tell him, right? Critical information requirements. So this is, the team knows, like, hey, if any of these things happen, safety, financial, emergency situations, complaints, one-star review, reputation, any of those things happen to affect the company, their job, they know because of this, they have to let me know right away. Anything else, all the stuff on top, they're guardrails. Operate within here. This is how you can operate. You're empowered to do your job, operate within these guardrails, but when the CCIRs hit, that's when you call me and bug me. Make sense? What's fun for me, being a military guy, is having stay-at-home moms in Mexico who have never been in the military. They don't know what an admiral is, and they're talking about commander's intent. That's pretty cool to me. They're using military lingo, right? It's kind of neat. And then once you have all that stuff, it's easier to delegate, right? You have your vision, you have your job descriptions, you have the SOPs, this is how we work, this is our system, this is our process. You have your expectations, boom, okay, now you're empowered, go do your job. Let me know how things are going, we'll have weekly meetings, and we'll go over the KPIs. And so that's the next thing here is touch points and meeting cadence. So within EOS, you have a weekly level 10 meeting. They call it level 10 because you measure it, right? 1 through 10, 10 being the best, 1, it sucks. So at the end of the meeting, you say, okay, well, how do you rate the meeting? Usually it's a 10, Sometimes it's a 9, but typically it's a 10, unless you really suck. And if you do, you have to have a conversation and see how can we get better. But with those touch points, what we like to do to create a culture, especially in the virtual world, right? It's hard because you're not together. We like to have a little fun and do an icebreaker every week. So our icebreaker now is called the Heart and Hustle. And what we do is everyone gets an opportunity to tell what they really enjoy about what they do. And then they also have to talk about the challenges that they have. So this is Liz. Liz is the finance manager. So she told us what she likes to do. So she was telling us that she enjoys finding money, like finding discrepancies in the spreadsheets and all that stuff. She loves that stuff. She's a finance whiz. What she doesn't like is when Chris spends money on a credit card and I don't tell her about it. So, but that's a joke between her and I. But anyway, it's a lot of fun to have these icebreakers because it's really an opportunity to be vulnerable sometimes. It's an opportunity to get to know people outside of work because I can't just go pop in Alma's office and chit chat about the weekend, right? So if you have a virtual environment, it's really good to have these icebreakers and routine training. Yesterday we had a virtual Christmas party and we did a murder mystery like role-playing thing. It was a lot of fun. It was so much fun. But having fun like that really develops a relationship with your team. And my team, they've been with me for between 3 to 5 years, this team here. And we have a lot of fun together. And I've never met any of them in person, except Pablo. And then culture. So my team knows that they can push back. Obviously, it took a little time. They have to trust me enough to know, hey, if I'm going to push back on Chris, if I'm going to say no to him, if I'm going to disagree with him, I got to feel trust. I got to trust that he's not going to get on me or jump down my throat or whatever it might be, right? So we got to a point now where the team does feel that way. I think there's a few people maybe struggle a little bit on that. Alma certainly does not. She does not struggle with that at all. we had a meeting a couple months ago, and I can't remember the details, but it was during our level 10 meeting, because at the end you talk about your issues. We're talking about a certain issue, and she said, hey, we should do this. I'm like, I know, but we got this going on, this is what we need to do. She goes, yeah, but Chris, blah, 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 whatever it was. I said, Alma, I understand, but this is what we're going to do. Then she says, I strongly disagree, Chris, and left it at that. It didn't get really heated in a bad way, but it got heated enough to where Pablo was like, yeah, Chris and I were fighting. You know, it was a lot of fun. But Alma and I talked about it after, after the meeting we got on afterwards. I'm like, hey, I just want to make sure we're okay. Let's talk through this. She goes, yeah, we're fine. And we talked through it. She explained her why, I explained my why. And we came up with a compromise. So what's funny is I came up with these slides last night. And I sent them to Alma. I'm like, hey, can you just look over these slides real quick? She goes, yeah, sure, no problem. Like 7:30 last night. She sees this slide. She goes, Chris, I don't like how I'm portrayed in your slides. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. And I said, she goes, well, let's talk about what actually happened. So we talked about, she goes, you remember I changed your mind. We went my way, not yours. I said, yeah. So after we talked about it for a few minutes, we compromised, and I made this slide. I sent it to her, and she was happy. She strongly agrees with it. She approves this message right here. So, I came up with all this stuff yesterday. Hopefully it landed a little bit, but it was really an opportunity to show that, leadership in the military does translate to leadership in the business world. It's cool that I got military guys here because you can really use one for the other, right? Especially with the SOPs and all that stuff. But in the virtual world where we really operate mostly in the virtual world in my company, and I highly recommend using remote team members because as small business owners, we don't have a lot of capital to hire with the US labor expenses, right? So remote team workers, they're all stay-at-home moms. They quit their jobs to support their husbands, but they have these amazing skills and they want to use them. They don't want to just be like, at home with the kids all day long. They want to do stuff. And so I hire them and they're running my company, right? If I take a day off, it's because Alma's running the company. She's in charge when I'm out. And she's in Guadalajara, Mexico, and running jobs in Houston and Tacoma, Washington. So it's pretty amazing, right? So you guys could totally do this. Remote teamwork is the way to go if you're scaling your business and you don't have the capital to bring in a lot of people. I'm not sure what's next. Okay, best time to start is now. But anyway, so that's my story. That's leadership. I don't know if I took the hour, Steve. I'm sorry. I don't know how long that took. But I guess I'll open it up to any questions or anything. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I love your presentation, by the way.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Really appreciate that. What company do you recommend, PA company in Mexico?
There's a couple of them. And there's different business models. I know, have you guys met Joni?
Yes, she's here.
Okay, so Joni, she's got one. She operates hers, and I think they're kind of like the HR people. They hire someone, but they work for them, but they work for you type thing. I like to pay direct, and I like go direct. So I use VPM. Pete Newbig, Steve's. Okay, so I use Pete Newbig's company, and that's all I use. The reason why is because VPM is just really a payment portal. I can find talent through them. I can pay my team through them, but they're not a third party involved. They work directly for me, and that's it. VPM Solutions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can create a free account, jump on there, do a search, and they have talent from all over the world. I like to use Mexico just because they're in the same time zone. A lot of them have lived in the US, and then we're really more accustomed to the Hispanic accent than anything else. Here anyway. Yeah.
I love that you make it about culture
been a game changer for my company.
Yeah.
Focusing on culture.
Absolutely. Yeah, culture is the biggest thing. I mean, that's, it's just like your family, right? Your work is your family. And if we all have that same culture and we understand this is how we operate as a team, as a family, it's a lot easier that way. As the leader, we set that culture. Did you have a question?
No, I just want to actually say about
Yeah.
VPN that I got VPN. I got Felipe. Somebody will know you, Felipe, from there. He's from Costa Rica, and he's such a gem. So yes,
Yeah.
VPN is great.
Yeah, I like VPN a lot too. Any other questions? Yes.
I just want to say I really appreciate like you talking about explaining the why.
Yep.
Because I think that's a genuine like we all want to know the why, and
Yeah.
not all leaders explain that why, and you lose that disconnect, you lose that trust.
Agreed.
I'm curious though too, like when you're creating your system, did that take you a while to get to like making the SOP? Like what was kind of your first step? I'm really early on in creating.
Yeah. It's quite a process. So what we do is let's say, for example, our sales process. All right, who's involved in our sales process? So we got Isamar, who answers the phone call. There's me, of course, and then there's two others, or no, one other. And then Elsa, we have a meeting and we brainstorm to flowchart. What are we going to do, right? And then Elsa joins us because she's taking notes and documenting everything. And so what we do is we go through the flowchart, and then Elsa will fill in all the details, like a flowchart, and actual like squares and arrows, decision points. If it's no, it's this. If it's yes, this. It takes a little while to do that. But then after you flowchart it and then you start writing it out, then there's follow-up questions of like, oh, what about this? And what about that? And you get to a point where like, okay, I think we're about 80-85% there. Let's make it official, but knowing that there could be revisions as we hit certain situations. Mm-hmm. Yep.
How were you able to implement traction with them? Did you have them read the book? Did you just give them the outline? How was that look like?
So in the book Traction, it talks about having meetings with your leadership team. So I've got a leadership team. It's Alma and Liz. Elsa and I, Elsa's, she's the one who writes all the SOPs. She's very detailed. She and I read the book, and then we went through a lot of the stuff, and she summarized each chapter and gave it to the leadership team to read before we had a meeting. So we would say, okay, hey, next week we're going to go over chapters 2 and 3. And these are the decision points we need to come up with. There was a couple times we needed to bring the whole team on, like when we were talking about our tagline or something like that. We wanted the whole team perspective on that, but for the most part, it was the leadership. So that's how we self-implemented. It was a little bit easier for me because I've read the book 3 times already. And to bring Elsa on to really help us, guide us, because she's so detail-oriented, that really helped out too.
I read the book and I had my whole team read the book just in the course of the last few weeks.
Okay.
So when I get back, we're implementing all of it, but I like the way you're able to segment it. So I've got people on my team that are actually creating the outlines.
Okay, cool.
Very much like that.
So we started in August, and initially I was optimistic. I'm like, hey, I want to be done by October 1st. Well, October 1st came, we weren't done. We weren't done until actually last week. Because I'm like, hey, I don't want to rush this. It's not a check in the box. We're actually going to follow this, and we're going to be purposeful behind it, right? So we finished it up, and what we're going to do is next week when we have our level 10 with the whole team, I'm going to brief the whole team. Like, hey, here's our 10-year target, here's our 3-year, here's our 1-year, here's our goals for the next quarter.
During that process, what was your biggest, what was the most time consuming of that operations change? Because we just actually offered a bonus to all of our VAs to read the book, and so when they finish the book, we're going to do a weekly training on each chapter, and then start implementing that way so that everybody kind of has a buy-in, and then we offer them like a $100 bonus to read the book.
Okay.
But what was your longest, what was your biggest hiccup, I guess, in that, or what took from when you got to October, right, and you're like, shit, we're not done. Why, I guess?
Okay. So because I've read it a couple of times and it's not the most exciting book in the world, Elsa was essentially like my mom sitting next to me at the table making me do my homework. So I was the bottleneck. she goes, hey, what are we reading next week? I'm like, oh, can we just take a week off? That was my attitude behind the whole thing. But when we were actually doing the work, what took us the longest, I would say, is just really brainstorming about what our issues are. Because there's a part where you got to come up with, what are your issues? Yeah. Let's put them all out there. And then taking those issues and like, okay, there's a lot here. Can we do them in a quarter? I don't think so. That's too much. So then you have to prioritize your issues and decide, what are you going to do first quarter? What are you going to do quarter 3? Or can you push those off to the following year? So that takes a little time.
So I'm Elsa.
Okay.
He's you. So I have to ask him if he's done his homework.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's not an exciting book.
About halfway through.
Oh, okay.
Getting there. It's been like a month process.
What's good though, I've already read it a couple times, so I underline a lot of stuff. Now I just look at my underlines. Even that's a painful thing.
I read it twice and then I've listened to it twice as well. And so I like listening. Yeah, I like it. We haven't implemented it entirely yet.
Yeah, that's pretty unique.
So if you listen to it on your way to work or something, it might help to refresh things.
I might fall asleep at the wheel. I don't know. I'm sorry, what's that? Traction. Gino Wickman is the author. Yep, there it is right there.
Right here.
Yes.
There's some AI tip.
What's that?
Have you used the Scribe How?
Have I used how?
Scribe How.
Scribe how, no.
So it's a phenomenal tool for SOPs. Basically, you go on the computer, you turn on, it's like you basically kind of like recording, and you go through the steps. So whenever you press on some button, it records it. So it's whenever like you have certain like SOP that's like on the platform, on the software, or like even let's say you want to give your executive assistant how to search flights, and you go, hey, go first to go here, you fill out this,
Yeah.
it records it, and then it takes screenshots and it puts the step. Oh, go first, go here, then search.
It's called
this.
Scribe how?
Scribe How.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty legit.
Is it, you use it too?
Yeah, that and do that with like also with like Loom videos.
You do a lot of Loom
Screenshots,
videos.
You have to, of course,
Describe how
modify
actually-
some things, but it's
It writes it out for you.
Yeah.
And it takes the pictures
text.
Oh, okay.
for like more intricate stuff.
That's
Yeah.
to do that.
Okay. I like that.
Yes.
Does it allow you to export that, or does it only keep it in their system?
I mean, you can.
You put it in like a Google Doc or something.
Yes, you can do it. It's not going to be as editable, but you can definitely export it. It gives you several formats to export it from, and it's also you can
right, see one.
you can embed it too on a website, like for example, or embed it somewhere. So if you want to put somewhere those instructions specifically, you have that embedding, and it can give you different type of views. So it can just be like a list of steps, or it can be like actually like a video that's shown step by step, or a press an arrow, like slide. Pretty neat.
Cool. Some question?
The minute you decided that was the route you were going to go, how long did it take you to get up and running and get everything in place? Like
For
business, for your
EOS.
For US? Well, okay, so kind of back up. When I started my property management company, at my previous job, I had a friend who quit his job to be an EOS implementer for his own business. And he and I had coffee, and he goes, hey, look, when you get started, I'll help you. I'll do this for free. I'll get with your team, and we'll implement EOS. So I was fortunate to have him help us out at the beginning. As time went on, we got a little loose with that, which is why I got back into the book, and we just started self-implementing it. This time it's taken us about 5 months to really get to where we are now. We've always been dedicated and committed and consistent with the level 10 meeting every week. And we know what numbers we're measuring week over week. We're going to relook at them to make sure that they're actually the numbers we need to be watching, and if there's other numbers that we need to be watching. But the consistency of the level 10 has already been there. It's all of the other stuff that I was showing you earlier is what we just came up with over the last 4 months.
Okay, so because I'm going to start off much on smaller scale,
Mhm.
so I just have one remote team person, like an executive assistant.
Yeah.
Build that relationship, and then I'm pretty sure that person's going to know a lot more than me on how to play it out. I'm going to try and learn as much
Yeah.
computer savvy, even though I'm married to an IT person. But, you know, I've got to stay open to the fact that I'm also going to be taught things that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, be open to that. There's a lot of things that my team teaches me. I would recommend focusing on a disk profile of a high C, maybe a CS, because they can really, they're really digging into the details and they care about the details and they get a little bent out of shape. Details aren't there.
Okay.
For me, an assistant really should have a good, strong C score. Would you agree with that, Tony? Are you a disk guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
What problems did EOS solve for you? What is the core problem that it solved for you?
For us, it was more clarity. You know, getting on the same page with our goals. It forced my team to have conversations about. You go through this thing called the people analyzer, where you understand if everybody on your team is in the right seat and if it's the right person, if they're in line with your core values, if they get it and they want it, and they have the capacity to do it. And it really creates a really good conversation about certain people, because it's not that I'm looking to fire somebody. It's more like, okay, I think that person needs a little bit more training in this area, right? So that was one thing. The other thing is having these conversations of, all right, what's our goal? And this is where I want to be in 10 years. Let's work backwards. All right, next year, what's realistic? We did this year. Next year, where should we land to help us get to that 10 year? And that 1 year goal conversation was really good for us, because our finance person really dug into the numbers, and we were able to come up with a projection that was in line with our goals and still, I don't want to say realistic, but it was like, it wasn't like, oh, next year we're going to do 10 million. That doesn't make sense, right?
Just still reasonable.
Exactly, reasonable. Exactly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Just as I help other companies implement EOS.
Okay.
And one of the areas that I see people really struggle with is they go through the whole thing, and then they get to the scorecard and their KPIs, their KPIs or their key performance indicators that they have for the team, they're not written in a way that there's something I can do next week to correct the action. So I kind of give the advice that you have two different metrics you can track. You can track stats, like how much rent did we collect this
Right.
month? Because I can't go out and do anything about that. I want to know it. I want to see the trends.
Exactly.
But it's not actionable. And then the other thing is something that's measurable. So an example of a bad KPI would be, I want my person in leasing to do at least 10 lease renewals a week. That's a bad KPI,
Right.
because there may not be 10
Exactly.
lease renewals available.
Right.
And so if I did 8, but I did 100% of them, it's going to show up red. It's going to show up that I didn't hit my KPI. So it's really thinking through making sure that people can take action to correct the behavior, or correct the outcome, the following week. Because
Yep.
I'm a little bit over dramatic when I see a company hit 2 reds in a row, 2 reds in 2 weeks. Because that means we had a problem, we didn't do anything, or we didn't do the right
Exactly.
thing to fix it.
Yep.
So when you're implementing EOS, the whole reason you do it is so you can get through your scorecard so that you can have solid metrics. So you as a business owner can be looking at,
Right.
if I only had 90 minutes to look into my company a week, I'm going to look at the scorecard because that's where we've determined what's important.
Exactly. One thing that we measure that's not a real KPI is the price of lumber, price of concrete, and because I got a team in Mexico, the exchange rate. Because if the exchange rate is off and I'm paying them US dollars and it's reasonable for me, but it tanks on their end, they got a little bit of an issue at home perhaps if they're relying on their pay, right? So that's another thing I measure. And to your point, for me, government jobs, I put 3 bids a week. It's a numbers game. The more bids you put in, the more jobs you get. And if I hit 3 or more, it's a green. But if I hit less than that, it's a red. The other week, I was gone all week. I was busy. I didn't put any bids on. I'm like, man, I don't want to go to that level 10 and be the only one with a red all day Sunday and putting bids in, right? So it's an accountability piece too, right? It's like if you want to look good in front of your team, you got to make sure you're green. Measure your stuff in front of your team too. Anything else?
Is your team working here? You doing all the construction here?
Yeah, Houston. Well, I'd say Tacoma, but I don't want to do any more work up there. So if you got jobs up there, I'll tell you someone else.
Who's selling?
What's that?
Who's doing the selling?
Selling? For what?
I said to get the jobs. Who's selling?
Oh, so marketing comes in, sales answers the phone. I'm sure you heard Steve say that. Marketing makes the phone ring, sales answers the phone. SMR will pick up the phone. She'll send Pablo out, or she'll make a phone call with Pablo. Pablo will talk to the lead, make sure and vet them, make sure they're good fit for us, and then we'll do a sales meeting, go through the bid, and then Pablo handles the sales, and then if we get the job, he handles the project management.
Okay, you doing all federal work?
On the federal side, there is no sales.
Right.
It's just submit bids, submit bids, submit bids.
Right.
Every now and then one lands.
What type of jobs are you doing?
Anything construction, all over the country.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a call yesterday for a HVAC job in Syracuse, New York, so getting close to landing that one.
Well, you just sub it out?
Yeah, just sub it. $70,000 bucks. Pretty good job.
All right.
All good?
Let's give her a round of applause,
Hey, thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Chris.